Okay. Hey, friends. How's it going? Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Oh my God. Hello, hello, hello. Mercedes. I can't believe it's you. What's up? Charlie's here. Sarah's here. Doc Bill, you are looking for the healing. You are looking for the light, brother. Because after all that, he's back. He had a session earlier today, you guys, and he's back. That's how committed this man is. Rhonda. She's back, bitches. She has some shit to do for a minute. She's living her life. She's taking charge of stuff. But now she's back. I love it. Cindy Foley joining us. Rhonda, all the people. Good to see you guys. Hello, hello. Please, you guys, tell your friends about this wild thing that happens. Let's get more homies in here. I love you people. You're my favorite people. And bring your homies. Who are your homies that can hear 6-dimensional, 95-dimensional stuff interrelated with 3-dimensional? Who are those people? Bring them on. They're invited. All right. We're going to do some energy work today. And we're going to do it about resistance. But I want to talk a little bit more. I've been talking a lot about resistance on here, and I want to talk a little bit more. There's a lot to understand about how resistance functions with regard to John Maletta, motherfucker, he's here. And somebody today, I won't name his name, told me not to say the MF word and not to curse. To which I said, I shall continue to do exactly that. Thank you very much, friend. And I also say, people sometimes are like, oh, you just can't help yourself. And I'm like, I can help myself. I'm making very conscious choices to speak the way I speak. And that's because I don't have a lot of resistance around who I am anymore. I don't have any energy or time to use my soul's light to diminish or edit or fit myself into a little box that makes other people comfortable. I totally get if it was in jest, Doc Bill, but let's make the point about it anyway, even though this is just for people to hear. Okay, this is a jumping off point just so people can get the concept. I totally hear you. But truly, on this topic, people say this to me sometimes. Why do you have to talk like that? What's because it comes out of me organically and I feel good doing so. If I were using curse words, even the term bothers me. If I were using them to avoid being with myself or being intimate with myself or being connected to myself or telling the truth or to avoid intimacy or to avoid connection with people, then I would really want to look at that. How am I using it as a distancing tool? And I'm actually quite aware of what the energy of the words I say does. So when people have reactions to it, okay, this is the whole thing. This is the whole thing. When any of us, including myself, have reactions to anything, the goal is to sit with the part of yourself inside of you that is having a reaction. Now, again, now we're jumping off of an initial thing and going into a concept here. My personal experience has been that over the years of doing all this kind of work, it gets easier and easier and easier for me if I'm ever activated by anything to just sit into like, ooh, that I fucking hate that. You know how you feel like you want to punch a fucker in their face? God damn it. Like when there's a big charge on something, you sit into the energy of that charge and you say yes to it. And you allow the light of consciousness, which comes, you guys, just through you sitting with the energy. Your attention is the light of consciousness. Conscious awareness happens through you. You know, they say the definition of love is paying attention to something. When you pay attention to your romantic partner, they feel seen and heard and loved and nurtured and cherished. Cherished is not a word. Maybe they feel cherished. I don't know what it means, though. But they feel cherished because all you're doing is paying attention. Why? Because that is you, the magic vehicle of you, focusing all the conscious awareness of consciousness itself onto one individual human being. That feels good. Think of it as like you're streaming all of consciousness at one person's heart. What a generous, wonderful gift that is. Attention, right? So when we are triggered in life and when we get activated, we want to feel into that and use our attention, our conscious awareness, which is the light of consciousness, which is spiritual light. Use our attention to pay attention to that place. And if you sit with something long enough, it will dissipate out of you. Now, if you're anything like me, I had this enough like relational trauma in my childhood that made sitting with my own triggers very, very difficult and the process of dissipating them very, very slow. So it was important for me to get a very strong spiritual connection, because the spiritual connection is what allowed or facilitated the transmutation of those triggers more easily. So now if I have a trigger, I could stand in my kitchen and go, okay, I hate her, I hate that person, I want to murder them, feeling it, and then it's moving through my back of my neck and it's gone. And then all of a sudden I'm like, my heart is compassionate, my heart is open, and I know how to communicate with that person in a way that is not me just saying, fuck you, you're terrible. Instead, I might go, hey, when you say that, I feel a little, feel like maybe you misunderstood what I meant, or I feel like hurt. Did you mean it this way? I'm all gentle and loving, and my communication is healthy again. Now, of course, that implies that I've learned something about how to communicate with people, which is another set of skills we can all better ourselves around. Okay, so how does that have to do with, or what does that have to do with resistance? In the same way that when we're triggered by people, you hang out with your family and your family member says some political thing you disagree with, or whatever the trigger is, that energy is a very similar kind of dense, heavy, limited block to your heart being open, aka a block to your being able to be connected to spirit or to conscious awareness, in the same way that resistance is. And why is that? It's because resistance is built in your childhood, just like everything else, or past lives, or other dimensional stuff, but mostly childhood, but oftentimes past lives, but mostly childhood. It's built in the past from bad things that happen, or things that you experience poorly, or things that you don't like. We can't judge what is traumatizing to us. But when a thing happens that doesn't feel good when you're young and you're unable to process that thing, you build resistance, excuse my burp, to it. You build resistance to it. That didn't feel good. I was unable to process it through me. So I'm going to resist it because it's my only way. I believe unconsciously it's my only way of not being overcome by it, not being engulfed by it, not being swallowed whole by it. We are so afraid of being engulfed, swallowed, and consumed by our triggers that we think the only way to survive them is to hold them off with the energy of resistance, which puts this kind of wall energy on your heart or in front of your heart in the same exact way that you have a wall there when you're triggered relationally. Okay? Even if you're somebody who's good at, in a certain system I studied, which some of you may be familiar with, they would always say, like, drop your barriers. They were always telling people to open their hearts and drop their barriers. Like spiritual people will say, just open your heart and just let that person in and just embrace them with your heart energy. And then these other energy people would say, like, just drop your barriers. Well, what I know about opening the heart and dropping one's barriers is that some people have a natural affinity for that and a natural ability to do that. And a lot of us need a lot of healing on the heart in order for that to become something we can just do willy-nilly. I can now stand in my kitchen after 20 goddamn years, or 25 or whatever the fuck it's been, of all this damn work, and feel into a trigger and dissolve it in 20 seconds. But you guys, the amount of time I worked to get to where that was true. Now, you may not have to work as long as I have because you may not have had as much stuff to work through as I've had. But the point stands, it takes time to get to where it's easy to process your stuff. And in the meantime, when it isn't easy, we need each other. We need spaces like this where we can come and learn some new tools, hopefully, about how to process our stuff. So I don't want to waste too much time today talking because I want to get right into this exercise, okay? I'd love for you guys, if you're able to grab a pen or your phone or a pencil, something to write with and something to write on. And we're going to write down some stuff. We've done some work with resistance already. But I want us to get really, really specific today about in a few different kind of categories of resistance. And as you're getting your pen and pencil and paper or whatever you're getting, I want to say this thing. Sometimes people think that when you clear resistance to a thing, you're going to be left doing that thing. In other words, how do I say this? I may have a culturally programmed idea that I should go to the gym 4 days a week or 3 days a week. Let's say I have a culturally programmed idea that if I were going to be thin, the way America says I should be thin, then I need to go to the gym 3 fucking times a week, and I need to eat very specific foods and not those other foods, God forbid. So there I go to my healing practice, and I clear all my resistance to eating healthy food, and I clear all my resistance to going to the gym. And then I find myself like, I give even fewer fucks about the gym. And I give even fewer fucks about not having cookies ever. What do I do with that information? Well, sometimes there's more stuff to clear, but sometimes it's you don't actually, on a conscious level, give a shit about the fucking gym. Or maybe I should say, it's not that you don't give a shit about the gym. It's that maybe you don't give a shit about weighing a certain number. Maybe your body is actually quite happy where it is. Maybe you've decided because of cultural programming, your body should be some other fucking place that it fucking isn't. And maybe it doesn't agree. And my question would be, who is more consciously aware, your body or your mind? Your body or your culturally programmed conditioning? We all know the answer. It's your body. But if you're someone like myself whose body went through a lot of trauma at a certain age or has been through various forms of trauma at various ages, it can be hard to trust the body. So we do all of our resistance clearing work and our integration, wholeness, and healing work with the aim of getting okay with, you could say, or getting into alignment with what your actual conscious being, your soul, actually gives a shit about in your actual body. We want to be in alignment with what is actually correct for you on the soul level. So if it's correct for you to weigh, I don't know, 7 pounds more than America says you should, but you're trying to fit into what America says, who the fuck is America anyway? Compared to the vast fields of conscious awareness. America is just a bunch of people programming your ass. Why do you care what they fucking think what you should look like? And I know the answer. We all know the answer. The answer is we want to belong. We want to fit in this world, and we want to belong, and we need connection. The need for connection and belonging is real. We each need to belong somewhere, and we need to feel connected, and we need to feel loved and adored and desired and desirable. Those are real human needs. So it's understandable that we might want to conform our bodies, squish our bodies into little shapes that fit the judgments of this world so that we can fit in, so that we can belong, so that we can be loved. That's understandable. Allow me to hydrate. So we want to be merciful with ourselves about the desire to twist ourselves into a pretzel in order to belong. But what if you were to clear your resistance to the idea that you already belong somewhere now? There are plenty of people ready to love you exactly as you are. Is that even a possibility for you to believe? And if it isn't, what are you exactly in resistance to? I'm lovable right now as I am with extra pounds of flesh on my body. Are you in resistance to that? Are you in resistance to the idea that you don't have to be perfect? You know, so many of us as kids decide unconsciously because of trauma that occurs, once we get perfect, then we'll be lovable. Once we heal all our shit, once we become an energy healer, once we become masters of our minds, once we're not so reactive, once we are nicer to people, once we've lost that 10 pounds or that 20 pounds or whatever you think you got to lose. Once we get there, then we'll be lovable. there are a lot of people who already see you as lovable. So the fact that you can't see you as lovable is the issue, not the thing you think you need to change in order to become lovable. And that's like a real backwards thing we have going on, particularly in the self-help and the spirituality worlds and therapy worlds even. We all are trained to believe, get yourself better, and then everybody will love you. I've had like the experience of having more people adoring and fawning over me when I was the most messy version of myself I've ever been 20 years ago than I do now. How do you explain that? It's because something about us, our core essence, who we really are, each of us, is visible and palpable to some people. And then we do our healing work and our growth work and our change work for ourselves to feel more whole, to be more whole, to be happier, to be freer. I remember in the first healing school I went to, one of our teachers said one time, he was like wearing the spiritual garb and he had the hat on and he was very important and he was at the front of the room and he charged a huge amount of money for private sessions and he had a name and he wrote books and he was famous. And there he was teaching our class and he deigned to share with the group and he said, "What do you think, everyone? Why are we here doing all this energy work? Why are we doing this?" And he like asked it in this really formal way. And you could feel the wheels turning in everybody's brain. Everybody was trying to come up with a really like esoteric, sophisticated, impressive answer. To be closer to God, to know ourselves as the oneness of the all, because it's our karmic duty to heal the planet. We're all sharing all these ideas. And he was like, "No, you're doing it to be happy." And we were all like, "What? Just that?" He was like, "Yeah, this is about you having a good life. This is about you feeling happy with yourself." So if we do our resistance work and we do our energy work, eventually you come to a place where it's like, you're happy with you. You're happy with you. That's the reason to do it. So let's use that idea as a jumping off point to do some little writing assignments here. So we want to look at everywhere we're not happy with ourselves, everywhere we're in judgment of ourselves. So let's take a moment. This is the first part of our homework. I'm like itching myself all over the place. And I think I just took the spring is sprung here in the Hudson Valley. And I took the dog out and I sat on the grass and now my body's like itching. Okay. So this is a little bit of an uncomfortable exercise. Okay. And I want to be very clear about how I say it so that we do it in a way that is constructive. But we want to write down everywhere we're in judgment of ourselves. So everywhere you're like, I'm not doing this well, and I don't do that well, and I'm doing this wrong, and I've done this badly. And I'd like you to just write down a list. I'm going to do mine on my phone. Everything that you're like frustrated with yourself about, and everything you're in judgment of yourself for doing or not doing. Okay, and let's just take 2 minutes to do that. I'll set a little timer. I'll be right here while we all do it. So go ahead and just start with that. Just 2 minutes. We can write for 2 minutes. It'll be over very, very soon. Also, we want to be sure not to judge ourselves about any of these things. Like you may know rationally that something you're judging yourself for makes no sense. Like I just wrote down aging. Of course, I can't judge myself for aging. Aging happens. It's not my fault. It doesn't matter that it makes no rational sense. We're going to write it down. Okay. You can't. It's so funny, the idea of judging ourselves for aging. It's like judging a tree for growing taller. Anyway, so no judgment of what you're judging yourself for. Just admit that you're judging yourself for it so we could get freer and freer here. Here we go. Just like 30 more seconds. Okay. All right, that's category 1 of what we're going to look at there. Now, what we have to understand, let's just pause for just a moment when you're ready, is that what we judge ourselves for, there's resistance in there somewhere. So if I'm judging myself for aging, I have resistance to aging. And I believe it or not, this is how resistance works. We've talked about this before, but if I have resistance to aging, chances are good I have resistance to not aging, believe it or not. And that may not be a very conscious resistance, but every resistance lives in a kind of polarized, locked place where you have one side of the resistance and then the other side. And that's why we feel so trapped by resistance, is that it's got us locked from both directions. Okay, we talked about this before, but just as a reminder. So when you look at your judgments of yourself, what you think you're not doing well and what you're upset with yourself for not doing well, it starts to show us that where we have resistance and what the potential two sides of those polarities are. So just so that we have some examples, can you guys throw a few things in the chat now that you're coming up with that you judge yourself for doing or not doing? What are you in judgment of yourself for doing or not doing? Just throw a few of those up in the chat as you're ready. We're going to talk about these in relationship to resistance just before we hop into the healing. Yeah, Fontana's here. What's up, homie? Good. Not exercising. I love it. Not living up to my potential. Really good. Not making money. Not working hard enough. I love this. Come on up. Squeezel's here, so everything's going to be fine now. Everything's going to be fine. She's here. Do you understand? The master healer has arrived. Oh my God, Cassidy goddamn Brown. What? Being envious. Oh, I love it. Not staying in good shape. Exactly. Eating correctly. Oof. Oof. Eating correctly. Oof. There's so much judgment in that, my love. Moving my butt. Not doing these things better. Exercise, skincare, money. Totally get it. Not smart enough. Oh, my friend. I don't love correctly. Having to be a caregiver for my dad. Having tough conversations. You guys are the best. This is perfect. Not able to be there for my child every time he needs me. God forbid, right? You be a human who can't perfectly parent every minute. Having to care about how I present myself. No pride of how I present myself. I see. Yep, I get all that. Why can't I figure this out, whatever it is? Deirdre, I would have you look at your human design chart and see if you have an open head in Ajna or just open head. Because you just named the not self theme of the open head, which is I have to figure this out. I can't figure this out. And if you have the open head in human design and you think all the time, I have to figure this out, I can't figure it out, you're free to not think. The freedom of the open head center is the freedom to not think. So every time you go like, I got to figure it out, say to yourself, I'm free not to think. And then get back into your body and see what your body wants to do in the moment. That's just a little sidebar. Okay, great. So really good stuff. Really good stuff. These are great, you guys. Okay, so what I want to say about all of these is I have a not open head. I see. Okay, great. So then that's not relevant to you, what I just said. So good. So then we have something we can clear here. Sometimes it's like, it's good to know what your human design is, because If it's just a not self theme of an open center, you can just practice leaning into the freedom of that open center. But if it's not, okay, well, let's do some healing work. And by the way, if you have open centers and you're having trouble getting out of the not self theme of that open center and into the freedom, there still might be a need for healing. So either way, we heal. So when I'm looking at this list, you guys, and thank you for that, Deirdre. When I'm looking at this list, what I want to say about it is, let me take a specific example. Not being able to be there for my kid every time he needs me. Let's take that. The merciful thing to say to oneself when we can't perfectly be there for our kid is like, I'm a human and I'm limited and I can only do what I can do. So if I were to say to Jamie, who's having this judgment of herself, oh, Jamie, just stop thinking that way. Stop it. It's okay. You're a fallible human being who can only do so many things in a day. How could you perfectly be there for your kid? Forgive yourself. And people just say, we just say these things at each other. Just forgive yourself or just let it go. When someone says to you, just forgive yourself, just let it go. Or someone says to you, lean into the freedom of your open center rather than the not self theme of your open center. Just do that. And you're like, bitch, if I could do that, I wouldn't be talking to your ass. That's when you know there's something to clear, and more than likely there's a polarized resistance to clear. Okay, so what I want to say about it is when Jamie works with her inability to be there perfectly for her child every time he needs her, the two sides of that might be like, I have to be there for him perfectly. There's like that programming of the mother, right? And it's a very deep biological, very understandable programming. Of course you feel that way. It's in your biology, because when we lived in the Serengeti or the jungles of wherever, that child's life was in your hands. And of course it is still now in America or Belize or wherever you are. That's a child is a child and they need the parent. My point being, if let's say the polarity there is, I have to be there for him perfectly, which is like a very rigid energy right here. And then there's the other side of like, I can't be there. I don't want to be there for him perfectly. Now you're stuck and you're just like this all the time. So you're like pushing through not wanting to be there in order to be there perfectly. So if we were to clear, I have to be there for him perfectly every time, and clear the opposite of that, I don't want to fucking do any of this. I don't want to parent this motherfucker. I'm barely parenting myself. Now we find ourselves here with no stuck wall here and no stuck wall here, which then gives you more energy to be able to assess the situation differently. So now if I've moved this wall out of your nervous system and this wall out of your nervous system, I might be able to say to Jamie, hey, what if you were a little more merciful with yourself and understood that you can't be there perfectly for your child every time he needs you? She might go, man, good point. And because we removed these walls, she might just find herself with more energy to be there for her kid more often or more fully. Or she might find herself like suddenly having a third idea. And this is the point I really want to get to today. The third idea. There is often a third idea, solution, energy option that comes into our conscious awareness after we've cleared the two sides of a polarity that make it literally impossible for us to see beyond the polarity. So if Jamie clears, I have to be a perfect parent, be there perfectly for him all the time, and then I don't want to do any of this shit anymore, or whatever her version of that might be, she's going to take a deep breath, feel much more whole, and go, you know what I need to do? I need to get a nanny. I'm going to get an affordable nanny. I'm going to have the nanny come 3 days a week. It's going to take pressure off of me. I'm going to see some movies. I'm going to go to the beach. I'm going to have a date night. Then I'm going to have a lot more energy for my kid. Now, maybe I could have been a coach to Jamie days ago before Jamie heard this concept. And I could have just coached Jamie, and I could have a coaching call, right? She could call me and be like, What do I do? I'm exhausted with my kid. And she might tell me about her judgment of herself. And then I might talk to her about polarity. And then I might just coach her. This is the problem, by the way, with coaching. Coaching is awesome. And I do a lot of it in my work with people, but I can't in good faith not pair it with energy healing. And here's why. When you just coach someone into doing stuff better, sometimes that's all they need. Like sometimes they go, oh my God, I never thought of that. I'm going to get a nanny 3 days a week. I'm going to find a way to afford it. It's worth it to me. He's going to get all the attention he needs. And then I'm going to go to the beach. I'm going to take care of it. It's going to be great. But if Jamie is like, I don't know, I can't, the nanny and the money, and I don't know how to do, it's not going to, and that's not enough. And that's not really parenting. And I should do it myself. If I present a solution to Jamie through coaching that Jamie then has a lot of challenge with, that says to me, Jamie has some deep resistance that she needs to clear that would make taking the action that a coach gives you easier for Jamie. Does that make sense to folks? I hope that idea makes sense. I speak, very passionately about this because in my own life, there have been so many things where people said, just do it, just do it. And this brings us to another really important point. I love how Teal Swan talks about this a lot. She's talked about it in a couple of her videos. She talks about the concept of bulldozing. And bulldozing, she talks about bulldozing ourselves. And bulldozing ourselves is where we go, just put your fucking big girl panties on and fucking do it. Just do it. And then we're all like trying to live up to the rules of America. So we go like, I'll just push myself into doing it. And when you have to push that hard, what that means is there's another part of self that's going, excuse me, I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't feel this way, but I really don't want to do this thing. And you're like, shut up, you. We're going to bulldoze over you and just fucking do it. That's why Nike's little charming slogan that everybody loves so much is really problematic to me. Just do it. Well, unless there's lots of parts of you that aren't on board, at which point I would say you are not in alignment with that thing and don't do that thing. Here's why. When we bulldoze over the parts of us that don't want to do the thing and we just force ourselves to do it, what that does is it builds a very toxic relationship with self. A very toxic relationship with self. You teach yourself when you bulldoze yourself like that, your inner children, you teach yourself to not trust yourself and to trust that you will never honor you. That you will never listen to the vulnerable parts of you. And if you can't listen to the vulnerable parts of you, how could you ever let anyone else support the vulnerable parts of you? The younger parts that don't want to just put their big girl panties on and do it. And that's when it comes to this work where we need to integrate those young parts. They need to have a voice. And one way to give those young parts a voice is to clear your resistance. So, and yes, option C that Doc Bill mentions. Yes, it's about creating option C, but people can't see option C. See what I did there? You can't see option C until you clear the resistance on both sides. Absolutely, it's about creating option C. In the 12-step rooms, we used to talk about the third option that only comes through a spiritual experience. So many times in my early days on the spiritual path, I felt constantly stuck between two options. I don't know if you guys have ever felt this way, but I used to constantly feel like, okay, I can either rent my place or I can sublet it to someone. I can either sublet or just like leave it there. And I'd be like, what do I do? What do I do? Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? When you find yourself in an either or proposition, I promise you 9.9 times out of 10, the answer is not one or the other of those options. The answer is a third thing that you need to discover through dissolving your resistance or your judgment on both sides. When the judgment goes away and you enter a spiritual state of unity and oneness, all of a sudden a third option arises where you go, oh, wait a minute. I have a friend coming into town and she needs a place to stay and she told me she could pay. Who knows? A third option arises. And if a third option doesn't arise, what often arises is, well, now I have all this extra energy because I cleared all this resistance. I'm going to just see how's my friend Steve doing? And you call your buddy Steve and Steve is like, oh, by the way, aren't you traveling? I have a friend who needs a room. So that's how the magic can work, right? That's where the magic happens in life. When these polarities disappear, suddenly we're open to different and new options that can emerge in our reality that we could not be open for or receive before that moment. Okay. Let's see here. Dustin says, definitely resonates. Feels like I'm almost attached to my resistance. Absolutely. Very good point, Dustin. A lot of us are very attached to our resistance. Why do you think that is? I'll tell you. The reason is because when you have trauma in childhood, oftentimes you feel like and you believe that the only way to get away from the pain of the trauma is to resist things that look, smell, sound, or feel like that original trauma. So I'll give you an example from my own life. I had a rigid, controlling mom. So I used to resist anybody who smelled the tiniest little bit like they had any control coming at me from any direction at all, which, by the way, everything feels like control when it's coming from outside of you. And then I would resist my own ability to control. I used to believe there was no time when control was okay ever. I thought control, we had to get rid of control. Why? Because I was so overly, toxically, abusively controlled by this person when I was very, very young. So I had to heal my resistance to control itself and understand control is a very useful energy when applied correctly and when applied well in the service of myself and others. But I had to first get out of the polarized idea I had that control was bad and freedom was good. Everywhere in your life, you guys, you have a good, bad polarity going on. This is good and that's bad, or this is bad and that's good. Whichever way it is, you have a resistance polarity set up. Now, when you clear it, what can you expect? It doesn't mean, let's say you're like, I don't know, voting rights are good and suppressing voting is bad, right? And let's say you clear those judgments. Does that mean that now you're going to be like a voting suppressor person? Or now you're going to be like, I'm okay with the political views of the person on the other side of the aisle? No, it means you're not going to be so goddamn charged about it. You're going to have peace in your heart about it. And then you're going to peacefully choose to support voter rights. And you're not going to feel like you have to fire back at those voter suppressive people so fucking hard in a way that they can't hear you anyway. Haven't you noticed that when you fight fire with fire, what do you have? More fucking fire. Does it solve the issue at hand? It hasn't for me. Maybe for you it does. I can't really speak to that, but I could say for me, it has not worked. But I noticed that in my reality, when I drop the need to fight back with so much anger, where's that anger come from? Resistance. All of a sudden, I'm not resistant to you. I'm open to receiving you. And you and I sort of magically find a way back to harmony. What if everybody on the planet were willing to do that? If the voter suppressive people were able to let go of their judgment of people coming to fucking vote, that would change everything on this planet. And if we, the people who like people who can fucking vote, voter rights, voter freedom, could let go of our judgment of the whole thing, we might just find a third idea might arise. How could we equitably help the other side understand this better? What is a new solution? A new solution might arise, but nobody on either side of the polarities in our world wants to let go of their rigid holding on to their point of view because we love to be right. The ego wants to be right so bad, so bad that it will, as Dustin says, hold on or be attached to his own resistance because that's his identity. Why? Because it was safer to be in resistance to the pain of his childhood than to receive the pain of his childhood because it was probably pretty fucking painful. But he's a grown-up now and he can dissolve his resistance to that pain or that past or those patterns and become open to receive them, thereby allowing them to integrate into and through his body, making him whole and bringing him to peace. Then he will feel no need to resist them, and therefore no need to identify with his resistance. And Sarah says, literally cleared my schedule today to step into tending to me instead of bulldozing myself. Hallelujah. Thank you for this work. Thank you for your receptivity to it. All right, let's do some energy work. We may go a little past 6:30 today. I want to apologize in advance. So we may go past. Now, let's go back. I still have another step to take you through. And I want you to look at your judgments of yourself, and I want you to frame them as polarities. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items on here that I'm judging myself for from time to time. And I'm going to break those up. So like if this one makes me laugh every time, aging. I'm judging myself for aging. Like it's my fault. Like I was like, I know what let's do at 45. Let's age real quick. Like I willed it into being. Okay. So what am I actually in judgment of when I look at that? I'm in judgment of how I look as I age. I get in judgment of I'm always telling Cassidy on the podcast, like my 11s and my eyebrows, I don't like them. And then I see the wrinkles and I see the way my eyes are doing different shit. So I'm in resistance to, so when I look at, what am I in judgment of? How my face is changing. And I'm in resistance to my face changing. Why am I in resistance to my face changing? I'm afraid I won't have people's approval. If my face changes so much, like who's gonna love this face if it falls apart? Which then shows me there's some attachment between my sense of feeling worthy of love and what I look like. So I'm in resistance to looking bad, or you could say looking less good, which is, God, there's so much judgment in it. And then that implies or shows me that I'm also in resistance to looking good. This is where this work gets really fun and interesting. So Richard Horseman just said, if you call yourself a frump, I get bingo. That's so funny. I come on here and I often refer to myself as being frumpy. And Richard calls me on it all the time offline. He'll be like, bitch, stop it. You're not frumpy. So this is a perfect example. So let me just get clear on it. So if I'm judging myself for my face changing and aging and slumping a little, that's how I perceive it, right? I'm in judgment of my face changing because I'm afraid I won't be lovable if my face changes, if I'm like unattractive. So I have to be attractive. So I'm in resistance to being attractive and becoming less attractive. So I'm going to write that down. Being attractive, or you could say having to be attractive and becoming less attractive. So what I'd like you guys to do is take each of your judgments of self, feel into what you're afraid of. What are you afraid is going to happen if that judgment comes true? And from the fear, you'll start to see where you're in resistance. So I had to get clear that, okay, if I'm in judgment of the fact that I'm aging, I'm afraid that if I age more, I'll look less good, whatever I've decided that is. And then no one will want to be with me. So sad. And that shows me I believe I have to be attractive. Now, anything you tell me I have to do, I'm in resistance to. And by the way, so are you, because that's how most human beings are. You have to do this. You have to look good. Part of us goes, fuck you, I don't want to. So then we know I'm in resistance to not looking good because I'm afraid that means no one's going to love me. And then if that's the case, the opposite is true too. I'm in resistance to having to look good. Now, let's be very clear. I don't walk around my waking life every minute feeling like, oh God, I'm falling apart and I'm dying. This is like a subtle thing that runs in the background. You know how you have those all the time? Subtle judgments of yourself? Okay, so let's take a moment. That was really funny, Richard. And let's break each of the items down on your list into two things, two sides of a polarity that you're in resistance to. All right. Now, if you need help, please throw into the chat what the judgment is and let me help you come to understand what the resistance is. But let's try for just 2 minutes. I'm going to set a timer for us to work for 2 minutes. Do let me know if you're struggling and need help in the chat, and I'll do my best to help you figure out the two sides of your polarized resistance. Oops. Okay, perfect. Leslie, I'm sending you a little question in the private chat when you have a second. All right. Secrets for Leslie. Okay, so does anybody need any help breaking these down into two opposite sides of a polarity so that we can be really clear before we go into the energy work, which, by the way, we're going to do like deep and fast because I don't want to keep you guys too much later than the hour, but we're going to fucking get in there and move things quickly. Anybody have any questions? Please throw them in the chat. Your questions always help the group, so please don't be shy. Okay. All right. Well, one more thing to say about resistance here is sometimes when you start to work with your resistance like this and clear the two sides of any polarity that it's showing up as, you may discover other pieces of your healing that need to occur. In other words, sometimes I've cleared resistance and then discovered, oh my God, there's a part. I need to do some parts work on a part of me that is like suddenly arising. Or, for example, you might do some resistance clearing and suddenly realize, oh my God, I'm actually triggered by this thing that happened at work and I wasn't even letting myself own that I was triggered. So then you get to do a little trigger clearing, right? So just be aware that resistance clearing can open you into more awareness about other stuff that might be hidden in there that might need your help or your attention. Another thing to keep in mind when I look at your guys' examples, like somebody said something great. Let me scroll back and see. Somebody talked about, give me a second, not living up to my potential. No, that's true. What was it? Not working hard enough. That one's a good one. So Rami says, not working hard enough, judgment of self, right? So when Rami clears whatever polarities of the resistance, I have to work harder, I don't want to work harder, or so that might be like not working hard and having to work harder. Those might be the two sides of that resistance. Now let's say Rami clears those, right? They may be left then with an awareness of, you know what, I don't want to work harder and I'm okay with that. Or Rami might be left with an awareness of, holy shit, I have all this energy. I find myself organically working harder. What we're doing though is liberating Rami from the judgment, the conditioned based judgment that the culture has assigned that says Rami should be working harder. Now, it may be true that Rami wants to actually organically, in a true spiritually aligned way, work harder, because that would fulfill Rami. We don't know yet because Rami is so trapped in the polarity of I fuck working harder and I have to work harder that Rami can't even see what's true for Rami. And I'm speaking for you publicly, Rami, only just to make a point, right? So we don't want to put expectations, you guys, on what's going to happen when you clear a polarity, because it can either be you'll have peace or a lot more peace around the thing never changing at all. Or you'll be like, holy shit, I have energy to apply to changing this thing. Or a little bit of both. but we don't want to apply more judgment, okay, aka expectation, to what's going to happen when we clear the resistance. I hope that makes sense to everybody. All right, let's hop in and do some work. Please, please, please pop any questions you have at any point in the chat. I really want you guys to see Squeezel's face because, oh my gosh, she's so cute right now. Hold on, let's see if I can show you. She's just, oh, damn it, she woke up. She's asleep next to the computer and she had her little eyes closed. Okay, let's do some healing. Oh, trying to do stuff in an hour is crazy. Here we go. So we'll close our eyes. And this is going to go a little over time, guys, but I understand if you have to walk away. Try to stay with us if you can. I'll probably go until 6:40 Eastern time, so 3:40 California. I'll try very hard not to take it further than there. All right, so we'll close our eyes and take a few deep breaths into the low belly. Really deepen your connection to your inner self, your unahapili, the dantian, the low belly, below the belly button, above the genitals, right in there, right in that second chakra. Few deep breaths into there, just really blowing out the tension of life so that we don't have to be tight with our breathing. We can slow our breathing down and drop all the way down into the pelvic floor. And as we do so, we'll feel into our feet, being in contact with the ground. Hopefully you can find yourself in a position with your back supported in a chair and your feet flat on the ground to the best of your ability. If you can't, that's fine too. And by the way, if you're not in that position, imagine your feet flat on the ground and that you're sitting upright. See now at the bottoms of each foot a little spinning vortex of light, or a little spinning foot chakra, or a little tornado of light spinning at the bottom center of each of your feet. We'll just imagine it. And we'll watch that little vortex of light spin wide and spin open, bigger and bigger and wider, until the tornado of light at the bottom center of each foot expands so wide that the whole surface area of the bottom of your feet becomes an open window. And we'll just agree and acknowledge and allow it to be true that this open window at the bottom of each foot allows the electromagnetic field of your body to communicate with the electromagnetic field of the earth below you. The more we ground, the farther we can travel in the realms of light. We watch now as 500 tree roots made of light extend through the open window of each of your feet, hundreds of miles down into the earth. So 500 tree roots of light shoot through the open window of your left foot, and 500 tree roots of light shoot through the open window of your right foot, anchoring hundreds of miles down into the planet. This part is real important, so do your best to really see those roots of light. And as those roots anchor down and in, we just acknowledge that each of us is a tree of light in the realm of conscious awareness, metaphorically speaking, energetically speaking. And as your roots anchor down and in, the trunk becomes stronger and more full and taller. The branches get thicker, the leaves fill in. We have a full, big, robust, wide trunk-having tree that is anchored with 1,000 roots of light, hundreds of miles into the planet. Next, we'll see a nice wide grounding cord like another tree root shooting from the base of our spine, about hip width apart, hip distance apart. We'll see that root shoot down to the center of the earth like an open tunnel or an open tube. And we'll watch now and energetically become aware of a river of light that is given by Sophia Gaia, the soul of this planet, the spirit, Mama Earth. We'll watch as a river of light flows up through that grounding cord and into the base of our spine. And we'll watch that river of light flood forward into each of our hip sockets, down through the quads, glutes, and hammies, down through the knees, calves, shins, ankles, and feet. We'll watch that river of light flood into every single one of those 1,000 tree roots of light we anchored down moments ago. Every single one of those roots, nourished, nurtured, activated, awakened by this river of light given by the earth herself. And so we do acknowledge the forces of light. Breathe into the Unahapili, the low belly, the second chakra, asking for guidance, direction, and courage to know the truth. As it is revealed for our highest good and the highest good of everyone connected to us. Holy Spirit of divine light, protect me, please, from all forms of self-centeredness and direct my attention to the work at hand. Help me to know everybody on this call tonight, on this Facebook Live, in the light of the Akashic Records. Help me to see everybody on this Facebook Live tonight through the eyes of the Lords of the Records, and enable me to share the wisdom and compassion that the masters, teachers, and loved ones of everybody here on this Facebook Live have for everybody here on this live. Yeah, really good, everybody. All right, and our first request now, as we deepen into the Akashic Records of this group of people, this beautiful, powerful group here, we're asking the record keepers and the divine light itself and conscious awareness itself to clear, release, uncreate, or destroy across all dimensions of reality and time and space anything in everybody or anybody's field that is here tonight hearing these words that is standing in the way of them releasing what they'd like to release, being free of what they'd like to be free of, letting go of what they're trying to let go of. And by the way, if you came here from one of my classes because you're working with your core negative imprint, begin to call up the energy of your core negative imprint by feeling into it. For everyone else, yeah, really good. We're asking the masters, teachers, and loved ones, the divine light itself, conscious awareness, to clear all the resistance anyone might have to being here and to receiving what is available to you here. Good work, everyone. Stay with or notice whatever feels tight, tense, or heavy in your body, sharp or hot, uncomfortable in any way. Stay present to that and let this light hit you there and trust that it will move. Good. They're working with a number of you, us, on the brainstem, dissolving the crystallized, stuck emotional energy from old traumas that get lodged into the brainstem. So stay with the throat or the back of the neck, whatever you're noticing. Yeah, this is good, everyone. We haven't even gotten to the resistance yet, but great job. Everything in the way and everything that would have you resist what's available for you in this session. We're sitting with that and clearing that. Great. And here we go. All right. So take a look at your first polarity and repeat after me, either out loud or internally. Both of them are perfectly welcome. I call up into my conscious awareness all of my resistance to blank, the first side of your first polarity. and sit with the energy you notice that comes up in your body. Those of you working on a core negative imprint, repeat this. I call up into my conscious awareness the core negative imprint that causes me to believe I am a blank. What we came up with in class. And given that this is a somewhat shamanic process, meaning we're literally transmuting energy in your body in real time, let's repeat. I call up into my conscious awareness all of my resistance to blank. Feel it. Receive this light. Whew. Really good, everybody. We're going to go on to the second side of your first polarity. Repeat as you're able. I call up into my conscious awareness all of my resistance to blank, the second side of your first polarity. And if you're working with a core negative imprint, just repeat the same phrase. Or you could say, just feel into the energy of the beliefs that you wrote down. It's important that you feel, given the shamanic nature of this healing. Here we go to your second polarity. Repeat as you're ready. I call up into my conscious awareness all of my resistance to blank. Part one of your second polarity. Let's repeat that same last one. I call up into my conscious awareness all of my resistance to blank, the first side of your second polarity. Excellent. They're moving us really quickly. Repeat as you're ready. I call up into my conscious awareness all of my resistance to blank, the second side of your second polarity. This is really beautiful, everyone. We're taken to a deep place now. We'll go with one more, a third resistance polarity. I call up into my conscious awareness all of my resistance to blank, the first side of your third polarity. Ooh. And again, if you're working with a core negative imprint, just stay with the energy of it and repeat the sentence to yourself that we created in class so that you bring up the energy of the sentence and let this light hit you there. And if it moves, feel free to be free of it. Let's repeat. I call up into my conscious awareness all of my resistance to blank, the first side of your third polarity. I mean... Really good, everybody. Great work. Last side of the third polarity, second side. Here we go. I call up into my conscious awareness all of my resistance to blank, the second side of your third polarity. And as that's clearing, I'm asking now the record keepers, the divine light itself, the angels, the star beings that are facilitating, I'm asking that you clear, release, uncreate, and destroy for everybody on this Facebook Live anything related to these issues, anything they can't see that's holding these polarities in place, any stuck energies or negative imprints, any emotions they can't find on their own. Asking that you clear, release, open, integrate, and bring up the emotions about all of that that is related, that holds any or all of this in place. Okay, and they're calling for a past life clearing. So any and all past life energies, beliefs, oaths, vows, fealties, communities, swearings, promises, commitments, bindings, bondings, blood oaths, signs sworn or committed to consciously or unconsciously, curses or spells from any past life or lives, holding any of these energies in place for anybody on this Facebook Live. I mean, we ask that all of that be brought to the surface and brought to present time now, please. Completed, released, integrated, and cleared. Across all time, dimension, space, and reality. All that past life energy be brought to present time and completed for everybody on this call, on this live. And now any density you're feeling in your body, any heavy emotions, any anxiety, any strange sensations that are not peaceful and light, please feel into those now. Don't fight it. Don't resist it. Don't try to push it down. Let it be there. The only way out is through. Go into it and go with it. Let it take you. Okay. Whew. Okay, and we're asking that all the places and spaces that were cleared, all the stuck, dense, tight, anxious, sad, etc., energies that were released, that those places and spaces be filled in now with the highest and best frequencies of light that everybody on this Facebook Live can now hold. We ask that they be filled in with the highest and best Akashic blueprinting we can each hold. Oh, man. Okay. Okay, so over the course of this week, between now and when and if we meet again next week, please make a note on paper to the best of your ability of any changes or shifts you notice after tonight, any pieces of stuck energy that remain stuck or dense or torturing you, but give it 2 or 3 days after tonight to see how things settle out. These energies are big, they move a lot quickly. This is a big group, so we're moving a ton all at once. Give it 2 or 3 days to settle and integrate. Take very good care of yourselves, please, in the meantime. Hydrate, rest. Take magnesium if you need it. Take whatever you need if you need it. Not drugs, but herbs and healthy things. Things that actually support the wellness of your body. And just take note of how it goes over the next coming days. What's different, what's lighter, and what's still not gone. But be specific on paper. And bring it back here next week, and we'll pick up where we left off. Oh my goodness. I'm going to close the records for now. You're all incredible beings, so ready to move so much energy. I want to thank the masters, teachers, and loved ones for their love and compassion, the lords of the records for their point of view, and the Holy Spirit of light for all knowledge and healing. I ask that you return everybody here on this Facebook Live to their complete human wholeness now. I ask that you return everybody's energy on this Facebook Live to themselves now, please. The divine portal and the Akashic records of everybody on this Facebook Live, including myself, are now closed. Amen. The divine portal and the Akashic records of everybody on this live, including myself, are now closed. Amen. The divine portal and the Akashic records of everybody on this live are now closed. Amen, amen, amen. Amen. Okay. All right. Go gently, my friends. Go gently tonight. Thank you. Couple things to keep in mind. Check out omapittsburgh.org or com. I can never remember. Looks like I may have another class through them starting rather soon. And it's quite an affordable class with a lot of people. So the energy moves really powerfully and quickly. Stay on top of their site to learn more. That's my most affordable class. What else do I have for you? That's full, that's full, that's full. Oh, yeah. And when you're ready to do your deep dive work and really hone in on whatever's going on for you, katierubin.com to book your private session or your package of sessions. There's also some fun new products on the site. If you're curious, you can buy an energy healing from me that you can use over and over again, like what we do here. So it comes with some really high-end herbal tea that a friend of mine who is an herbalist in Lancaster, PA, harvested herself, and a roll-on that supports healing. And then you get a link to the actual healing itself. And that's a product on the products page. It's called the Healing Kit, Energy Healing Kit. So check that out. It's a great way to get a lot of healing without having to come back. I love you guys so much. Thank you all for being here. This was a deep evening. So please go slowly, go gently, be in touch if you need support, and take good care of yourselves. Till next week. Bye.